name is Scott Davis. If you've heard me here speaking, I've been speaking about digital accessibility and AI all week. So I'm so thrilled to see all of you here in the very last slot of a long but exciting week. So thank you for joining us.
I'm James Ward. I work mostly on MCP stuff, Model Context Protocol stuff at AWS. And talks this week were on functional programming, effect-oriented programming, and yeah, stuff in that realm. So thanks for having me on the panel.
Hi everybody, I'm Birgitta Boeckeler. I'm a distinguished engineer at ThoughtWorks. ThoughtWorks is a global software consultancy. And so I'm a developer by training. I've been a lead developer on teams, an architect, and now I'm basically applying AI to the domain of software delivery. So I talked at the conference about AI coding assistants and assistants beyond coding, and that's what I do at the moment full-time at ThoughtWorks, kind of building up our subject matter expertise on the topic.
I'm Ken Sipe. I'm from the United States in the state of Missouri. I work as an enterprise architecture right now, and been working in the Java space forever, memory management, and now I spent 8 years with a startup company in San Francisco working on container and containerization and orchestration. And I am currently with an org that is rolling out AI, and we're integrating into a number of services, ops, as well as dev. So.
Venkat Subramaniam. I'm a consultant. I do mentoring, consulting, training. I normally say that I live on on seat number 10F on United Airlines flights. That's where I'm usually there. And when I land on Earth, I'm in places like this and have some fun. So it's great to be here. I think we should get focused on the topic that's on everybody's mind. And for this panel, the question we kind of targeted towards, is AI going to take my job away? That's a concern that I think every one of us has, doesn't matter who we are. And so we can focus on some of those, but I would rather listen to your questions and your comments and then have the panel talk about it than to start with our own questions. So who has the first question? Don't hesitate. Please, fire away. Thank you. State your name, anything else you want to say, and then ask your question or comment.
Why software developers?
Yes.
As opposed to everyone? Like it's going to just replace everyone?
That's a fair question. And one of the reasons we want to...
Venkat, should we repeat the question?
What was that?
So the question was, why just software developers? Why are we not concerned about all jobs being lost?
Right.
Since we didn't have a mic, I just wanted to repeat.
Absolutely, thank you. And one of the reasons we wanted to focus on software developers is because how many of us are software developers? There you go. Next question. Yes, please. Do we have a mic for the audience to?
Yeah,
oh,
do you
okay,
think
there we go. Yeah, it's approaching
Hello?
you.
Am I audible?
Yeah, do you think AI play a vital role for poverty reduction?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Do you think AI play a vital role for poverty reduction?
So the question is, will AI play a vital role for poverty reduction? Who wants to take it?
Poverty reduction.
Yep.
I like it. We'll always reserve the right to answer the question we wished you asked, not the question you actually asked. But it's a lovely question. When people ask questions about will AI do this, will AI do that, will this, I like to redirect and say AI is already here. AI is in our pocket, it's on our phone, it's in our smart speakers, it's those kinds of things. So AI is nothing we need to wait for. So the question is, what does technology do now to reduce poverty? I work at a community college. I'm the director of digital accessibility at Front Range Community College in Colorado. And one of the things I talk about is it's really important for us to have good mobile phone support. And when people talk about a mobile-first development priority, I mean, we've been talking about that for decades now. The first iPhone came out in 2007. The first Android came out in 2008. We said it's so important to have a good quality mobile experience. My experience at a community college, when I started, I was told that many of my students might be experiencing homelessness. So we provide food, we provide clothing, we provide shelter. And I said the reason why smartphone support for us is so important, for many people in poverty, that phone is their sole access to the internet. They don't have broadband to the phone, they don't have to their home, they don't have laptops. This phone in their pocket is their lens by which they view the internet. And so I would like to say that every moment you spend focusing on providing a good, quality mobile experience, think about the people where that is their only view of the internet. And that, I think, is how AI is helping people in poverty.
Maybe in a broader sense, like, you know, will AI be good for humanity? Or like, I'm still not 100% sure if like large language models specifically, maybe not deep learning in general, you know, there's a lot of applications of this to really important things like cancer research and stuff like that, right? But these large language models, right, will that be a net positive for us? I'm actually still not sure. When I think about all the spamming and all of those things that can be done with it, and if we think about, yeah, we can now, you know, code faster and all of those things, right? But we still don't know what our code will look like in 2 years, and we could have still done it in the artisanal way, as my colleague Steve Upton likes to say, right? We could have still continued doing that, right? So I'm still not so sure about the net, if it will be net positive or negative. I think there's a lot of negative impact from this as well.
I think I have a thought there. I had a number of thoughts. First of all, it sounds like that's a passion of yours, which is admirable. That's awesome. I have concerns, though, and that is, well, first of all, I think we can clearly say AI will not do that. It's humans, right? So the question, probably transformed just a tad, is will the extra time, will the extra business generated, like our productivity increase, will that result in that? I don't think it will, unless we as humans become better humans. It's up to us to decide. What I think, the other thought that I had is we commonly talk about it, like AI is it. I actually am a little bit resistant to that. I don't like it. There's no sentient being behind the thing, right? Like it is mathematical pathways. So, I think there's a little danger in giving either authority or responsibility to, you know, a computer that is giving you probabilistic answers. And I would also say that through the last, let's say, century, we have increasingly had more free time. We have more, like, I don't know your condition and your situation, but as a general worldwide population, we have more time than we've ever had. And that might be more than centuries. It could be significantly more than that. But we definitely have more time. And what are we using that time for? How are we deploying that or adding value to the world? And it doesn't feel or seem like we're solving the problems that you're espousing. And so I have worries. The worry is we could be better at how we utilize our time, except for Venkat, who is the hardest working person and human I've ever met, to be honest. I don't know how he has time to breathe, let alone, you know, save the world. But, and that's meant to be a compliment, by the way. So anyway, hopefully I get close to the answer, but I really think it falls on us to be responsible and to utilize our capabilities and powers and to have a culture that we agree upon and align with that cares for all humans, right?
So I'm going to take a more of a cynical view on it, and sadly because I think the forces against us are much bigger than AI or any technology. And going back to what Ken said, it's a human concern more than a technology or an AI concern. But you know, when I was a child, I mean, I say this with a broken heart. When I was a child, I used to think that these old folks have no clue, and we are different. And now that I'm older, it really breaks my heart to see the folks that I thought would change the world have made it worse. And that's the world we live in. And until we take responsibilities to care for each other, I don't think we can hope a technology will come and save us. This is a mess we have created, and we have to get ourselves out of it. I don't think the technology is going to make us any better or worse. There are more forces that are against us than AI or any technology itself. I wish I had a better answer, but that's my observation from what we know so far.
Hi, I have a question. So, like you said that, we have a lot of free time because of the advent of AI. Do you think this free time that we are getting, is it worth the cost we are paying for it? And the cost we are paying for it is with our cognitive abilities. We have practically seen a, decrease in the abilities that we, we used to think better before AI, right? Now we just, depend on AI to, get our work done. So do you think the cost that we are paying with our cognitive abilities is worth the extra time that we are getting out of it?
I have so many thoughts. Where do I start? So, years ago, predates me, someone invented a calculator. And when they invented the calculator in like the 40s or 50s, whenever it was, the school system, everybody's scared. And by the way, it's good to be reminded. Humans have this condition where they project a future, and oftentimes it's trying to resist what could be negative, and so we focus on that negative. And we are also very predictably wrong about our ability to predict the future, right? So I'll say that. But in the 50s, they came out with a calculator and they banned it from schools. They're like, hey, we're going to have a dumb generation, right? And at some point, you had a calculator and it gave you an answer, and then you did it in long form, you double checked the calculator. And then at some point it switched. At some point you're like, hey, I did this long form, I better get the calculator to see if I was right. And all of a sudden the trust in the calculator and the technology was there. And then we hit another stage, and that is, you can't come to this class unless you have a TI-83. You can't come unless you have this calculator. So if the past is an indicator of what the future might look like, I do understand the concern of, hey, if we replace jobs. My concern went differently than what you did, I think, in part, and that is, I think humans need a purpose. And without purpose, it's really challenging to be alive. It's depressing. There are issues that we will probably have to address, as well as the monetary issue where I am paid because I did something. I had purpose, added value, and I got something in return. So those are real concerns, but we could flip it, right? And that is, there are literally people who have these ideas to create a film, to create a game, to express their artistic abilities, that they don't have the resources to employ a number of people it would take in order to do that. And AI is creating an ability to create content that they imagined, that they wanted to add value to the world in, that wasn't possible for them without, right? So there is a hyper-focus on the negative, and I agree we should talk through it, but lost in that is like what it's enabling us to do. And I tend to be probably overly optimistic, so don't just listen to me. You want to listen to the naysayers and the contrarians too. But I'm actually very hopeful about what we're going to be able to do. And hopefully we'll use that extra time or that extra ability for good. But that is up to us. And so far, I have the same concern that Venkat had. I don't know if our generation did the best we could. Or we allowed crazy the inmates are running the asylum, right? And so we got to figure that out. But that's a really different problem. AI has nothing to do with that, really.
I think also we are looking at a very short-term view right now. For all practical purposes, I would say it's too soon to make a conclusion. It's too early to make any conclusions. And part of the reason is we are in this infatuation period right now where we are at awe with what AI is doing. But the reality is, when you look at most of the content that AI produces, about 10% of the time it's actually good, 90% of the time it's actually a garbage. So if you were to take reliance on what it's creating, that's a pretty dangerous situation to be in. So as the excitement settles, we then begin to realize that we need to use less of our time to implement things, but we're going to use more of our time to do critical analysis, to think through and say, is this actually a correct solution? Is this a good solution? Is this maintainable? And in order to do so, we need to have to develop the skill set to be able to evaluate things. In a way, if you think about it, right, to make an overly simplistic analogy to it, imagine you are asked to go from being a programmer to a reviewer of code or a reviewer of a design. If you're a programmer, if you're reviewing a design, that doesn't make you less intelligent or less smarter. You're actually going to be more capable to analyze and review the results that's being presented in front of you. And in this case, that result you're reviewing and either approving or making changes is not a solution from humans, maybe a combination of humans and AI. So I would say in the long run, it's not going to make us dumber. It's actually going to make us more smarter, I would think, and just that we are going to be focusing our skills on more intellectual things than more manual things.
Yeah, your question reminded me of a story. I was working for a company, this is years ago, and their build took about 15 minutes. And so they brought me in as a consultant and they said, we want to improve, you know, all the things around this. And I was taking a very test-driven approach. So I would write a unit test or two. This is the code I am going to develop in just a moment. But then I would have to wait 12 to 15 minutes while the software built. So I decided to teach myself to juggle during those 12 minutes. So throughout the day, I had 12-minute times where I could stand up and juggle. Of course, the balls would go all over, the beanbags would go all over, and finally the manager came in and said, you are wasting our time by juggling. I said, you are wasting my time by having a 15-minute build. Can we focus our efforts on improving the build so I can impart this idea of test-driven development and improve the quality of our code? So when we're looking at AI, I am not saying that AI is going to solve all of our problems. I am not suggesting for a moment that AI is going to replace us. Because one of the arguments the hiring manager made to me is, if we improve the build time, the build engineers might lose their job. Utter nonsense. We got the build down to 48 seconds. I never was a professional juggler, but we were able to take that time and use it to really impart test-driven development. And so if we're looking at ways that AI can increase our throughput, increase our productivity, let's not think that we're going to lose jobs or anything else. We're going to replace that by focusing on quality, by focusing on performance, by focusing on other important things.
James?
Yeah, I've been using AI tools for the last year or so in my job writing code. But what's weird is that I have way less free time over the last year than I did before. And I'm not quite sure why that didn't work out like I'd hoped. So I don't know what's wrong there.
Always happens, always.
Yeah. So I'm not seeing all the free time that we were alleged.
Maybe like the premise first, right? That we're like our cognitive abilities are going down, right? There are actually studies. I think there was one recently, just one example from Microsoft that was looking at this. That people are actually not closely looking at what comes out of it and thinking along. And also like beyond AI, right? I recently heard about this long-term study in the US about people's general abilities in problem solving and logical thinking, and that they're all like going down across the generations, right? And that has to do with social media and that we're more and more consuming video formats and stuff like that and reading less and less, right? So it's not just an AI problem, it's a general problem. And when it comes to AI, my suspicion is that probably we'll run into a lot of trouble in the next few years, I don't know how many years. And then, through the pain that we get from that, hopefully, that would be my hopeful view of the future, we'll learn from that and then, adjust, adapt, I think it's like going through a cognitive shift collectively right now, so that would be my hopeful view of that, that actually through the negative consequences, we'll have to learn to do things differently again and then maybe get back to some of those abilities. And hopefully that period of time will be as short as possible with as little collateral damage as possible. So that's how I think about it. And I also always try to remind myself to not romanticize too much how I learned. And what I was doing, copying stuff. And I'm one of those programmers who first wants to get it to work and then understand how it works, which is really painful when you pair with somebody who is the opposite, who first wants to really understand before you write a line of code. I've had that. So I try to not romanticize that, right? I think we all learn from the situation where we are, and I think the people coming in now that start with AI will come up with ways that we can't even imagine right now to deal with it. So I'm also in the middle of being concerned, but also hoping that we'll adapt again as humans.
I hate to add more, but before the next question, the thoughts around cognitive load or getting dumber or smarter or whatever, I actually prefer working with AI to consume news now. So as soon as we get details on, say, K218b, which is the planet that has, some signs of life, I want to dive in and tell me more. How did we discover this? How did we get the measurements? I learned so much, and I don't have to wait for somebody to put it together for me and probably not even be technically accurate to bring it down. I could go deeper. So I actually think that my cognitive abilities or my how I exercise my mind is greater now with AI than it was before.
Hi, this is Prabhanjan. So my question is we have seen in the history that if anything gets easy to do, in 2010 or so, website creation is easy. You can go to Shopify and do it, and right now also, you see anything that get fairly easy to do as a developer, creator, or builder, we kind of not focus on that. We move into something complex, right, to solve the problem. But here we see right now, almost every direction, a lot of things are getting easy to do. So as a developer, as a creator, it's a very, a lot of thoughts are coming okay, which direction to focus? As myself, my team, or what I wanted to launch. Should I build an AI system or should I focus on using AI system and build something? If I just put it in the right, if you give a suggestion for the new generation who wants to build or create, for next 5 years, what do you give the suggestions? Where do they focus? So yeah, that's my question.
Is part of that question are we going to continue to find new levels of complexity that will keep us occupied? Because yeah, there's things that are getting a lot easier, but I don't see any end to the complexity. I think we're always discovering new, more complex things, tackling larger challenges. We still don't understand how to build distributed systems that are work and are reliable, and there's so many places where we just don't have everything figured out yet. So I think, yeah, making some of those things easier maybe gives us more time to focus on some of the harder problems.
Your question reminds me of a story Venkat told in his keynote earlier this week. He said, I travel around the world and I speak at different software conferences, so I always like greeting the conference organizer in their native language. So I'll write something in English and have it translated to Swedish or translated to German or things like that. And he said, if it was a language I didn't speak, I was amazed at what AI could do. And then on a lark one time, he took an English language greeting and translated it to Tamil, his language, and it was awful. And he stopped doing it for all languages, because when you don't know what you're doing. When you don't know how to qualitatively evaluate the output, it seems like magic, it seems like shortcut, it seems like a hack. But if you listen to the experts, every one of them tell the Venkat story in different scenarios using different words. If you look at the output of this, you need to step up your game. You need to be sure that you can critically evaluate the output of this AI. So again, I don't believe that anyone is going to lose their job over this, because it's actually our job. This is a tool, and you need to be able to critically evaluate the output of this tool and make sure that it lives up to your highest standards.
I'm also still holding my breath on the everything is easier now thing. It feels like we're in a honeymoon period right now with like, ooh, look what you can do really quickly. But when it then hits the reality of teams, then there's like so many things still to figure out, right? And I lost my train of thought there. Ah, yeah, right. So we always say, no, I got it.
AI did it. AI did it.
My favorite sentence, I lost my favorite sentence for a second there. Gen AI amplifies indiscriminately, right? So if you have, thank you. I got this from my colleague Paul Sobosinski. So if you have an organization with a team with processes that maybe like creak in all places, and you have a lot of friction on your teams, and you have a really bad code base, right? You might accidentally use Gen AI as a band-aid on top of that process and just delay the pain because you're not properly fixing it to actually have nice flow, right? James Lewis gave a talk on flow at the conference here, and flow also applies really to how a team is working. And you know, it might just amplify the bad code that you have, right? Everybody wants AI to understand their code base so that it's that it has the context, right? But maybe sometimes you don't want AI to take your code base and just copy and paste everything, right? Because it might be bad. So the devil is always in the details, right? Like, will this make us more effective and productive as a team if we figure out good ways to use it? Absolutely. Like, I definitely feel like I'm faster and more effective with these tools, and I don't want to miss them anymore. But yeah. Another one, you mentioned distributed architectures, right? When we're now building all of these agents, right? I was recently reminded by Sam Newman, he was talking about idempotency in systems, right? If we have all these agents calling all these APIs and only half of them are idempotent, we're up for like big chaos, right? So all of these things, we're just going to have the next second order effects again, that problems that we have to solve. Everything new creates a new set of challenges, right?
Yeah, one quick thing to add to that I wonder about is, we've generally had AI code assistant tools for at least a year. They've been pretty readily accessible. And I don't know, there's estimates that these can make us 30%, 50%, you know, who knows how much more productive. But in my daily life, using my phone, the software in my car, the websites that I interact with, the tools that I use, I haven't seen a 30% improvement in that software in the last year. So it's like, where did all that improvement, where did all that awesome 30% improvement go? Because I'm not feeling it. My phone, did my apps get 30% better in the last year? Like, no. Like I'm just not seeing it.
Point.
And so it's like to your point, it's like
it drained your battery
stuff.
30% faster.
And like
it uses up your data plan 30% faster.
True.
And we're seeing this at, like, I work for a consultancy, right? And we're seeing this and you know, our clients come to us when they have problems or need help with something, or, you know, and there's so much technical debt, of course, out there, but also as a consumer, so much product debt, right? Like, I feel like maybe 5 years ago, there was this sweet spot where I felt like everything was working really well, and, you know, maybe I was missing some things I didn't even know about, but we depend on more and more software, and it's just getting, to be honest, like crappier and crappier, right? Like, as Cory Doctorow calls it, the enshittification of platforms, right? And look that up, it's not a joke. Like, he has really, really good talks and materials like about how these business models start to deteriorate for the consumer, right? And so the best outcome would be if we now use AI to reduce that debt and not increase it, both the technical and the product, right? And I hadn't even thought about that as a consumer. Yeah, where is all this value that you promised me with this, right? Because just being faster and creating crap faster, you know, will not make things better, right?
Actually, that question also reminded me of something which actually is going to become even more important, I think, as time goes on. Now that all these things are simpler, we're going to finally deal with the problem we have the most difficulty with, which is communication. Because the effectiveness in here is how we communicate with people and systems. How many of us are really good in communication? That's the problem.
We all like to think we are, right?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I just graduated. I'm just starting my professional journey. So there is all this talk about AI can replace entry-level engineer, like a fresher who has a junior engineer essentially, junior software engineer. So my thing is, so as of now, all of you have a lot of experience, and if AI writes bad code, you are able to diagnose it and correct it, right? So if I am relying on AI to understand code and to solve my problems as a fresher, so how will new freshers, new junior engineers become the next senior engineers? Because we have a lot of bad code, and even though AI is understanding from bad code, even I as a junior engineer, I'm also learning from bad code itself because I'm learning through AI. So how will we be able to give AI good code when me who is also learning from bad code itself? So what is the path for me to become a essential diagnostic person? So yeah, that's my question.
So one of the things that fascinates me about AI is when I give a really bad code and ask AI to tell me what's wrong with it, it almost nails it. But when I turn around and ask it to create a code for the same problem, it produces a code with the same exact errors in it. That's the point I don't understand. So in a way, it's like programmers. They know how to find fault with other people's code, but they cannot write good code themselves. So to me, the answer to this question is, so to me, this is rewarding for me because it truly, I think, is amplifying things we should be doing in the first place. I mentioned a few minutes ago, we should get good at communication. But one of the things I find frustrating and we should get good at is to really seek feedback from our team. So when I create something, I go to her and say, can you please review this and tell me what you think about it? That's when my real learning is happening, not by me doing stuff alone.
Or create it together in the first place, sit next to each other and pair.
And pair. And so this really puts the burden on both the senior developers and the junior developers to actually collaborate a lot more so that we can improve the ability for us to discern between quality and lack thereof. And I think it's the goal here is not to isolate people even further, but to really bring us together so that we can leverage the tools so that we can be more productive with it. And there's a bigger danger here. If we don't actively do it, the seniors among us are going to retire in a few years. And that's going to be a huge problem for the industry because you're creating a vacuum in the middle. And so it is a responsibility of the industry to really finally to say, enough of what we have been doing, let's get together and do more collaborative work. And the medical profession has figured this out. And it's time for our profession to follow them and do a similar work, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned that you're new to the industry. So there used to be this job title called database administrator. They don't exist anymore. I haven't seen a DBA in like 20 years at least because, oh, yeah.
Hey, Scott, we found them.
We found him! You're the one! Despite all that, I'll continue with the joke.
You can go back to juggling.
It was a joke because 20 or so years ago, they introduced ORMs, object relational mappers, Hibernate, and things like that. And they said, we're never going to need another DBA because we've automated their jobs away. Clearly a lie. clearly, empirically, a lie.
At least by evidence of one.
Yes, yes, yes.
He's the one.
But what ORMs did for me, if you're curious, if you're truly interested in your craft, I would look at the database schemas that Hibernate would create. And I would say, does that seem right? Did they do it right or not? Sometimes Hibernate would teach me something that I didn't realize. Other times, Hibernate clearly fell over, and we needed humans to step in and take advantage of that. Absolutely, we're in the same place with AI right now. If you can use AI and you're curious and critically evaluate the output, you might actually learn something. You might learn what good looks like. You might learn what bad looks like as well. But again, it's the human that's important. If we abdicate our responsibility as software developers, we deserve to lose our job.
Okay, good. I was waiting. I just had a quick thought. I mean, obviously, and you're a DBA, so it totally makes sense, right? Like bad input, bad output. It just comes down to the equation. It's been true forever. So, what will change that? Because I have high expectations that the experiences that were described, including your own, will evolve, and it will be different, right? How does that happen? Quality of data, right? Training. Those two things are going to help drive forward a new experience, but that's what we'll have to do. I get a little confused when we start talking about Gen AI, because there's obviously that interest. We're really good at specialization. We're terrible at generalization when it comes to AI. To think that we have one thing, one bot that knows and does it all is so far elusive. But we're definitely getting there with code generation, all kinds of other things to getting better in all categories. Bad input gets bad output. It requires training and relevancy through flagging and training and such. So it'll change. For the better, I hope.
The lady over here.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Harshita. I have a question. I'll take a step back and start thinking about jobs, right? So, do you think that that AI will ever have the creativity or empathy of a human? That is the first part of my question. And the second part of my question translates more to, say, I developed something, I found an issue with something, so I came up with some other idea, right? So since we're talking about code generation and stuff, so things become a tad easier, right? They're not as difficult as they were before. So do you think the innovation after AI will be at the same pace? Like somebody thought of containers, somebody thought of Kafka, somebody thought of databases because there was some issue while they were working on something, right? So do you think innovation after AI will be as fast as it is now?
So I'm going to say, to answer your second question first, I don't know about the speed, but I'm going to say this is one of the beautiful things about humans is fundamentally we are tools creators. You cannot take that away. And we will continue to explore and find, and we will use AI as a tool like we have used other things as tools. So I'm certain innovation will continue. The speed is actually very questionable because the speed often corresponds to the complexity of what you're creating. And so maybe we are off to creating something more complex and more valuable, and maybe that'll be a lot slower. So I can never make assertions about speed. But to go back to your other question, we tend to be in awe about the results that AI produces, and we tend to, this is to a certain, it's an abstraction, because we look at this and say, look what it did, and so our mind is allowing ourselves to forget the implementation behind it is actually a series of number crunching that yields a certain pathway to get us a certain result. And that's why I have the trouble with the word artificial intelligence. I like to use the word accelerated inference. That's what it really is. It's accelerated inference because it's inferring these things. But is inference intelligence? Yes, it's knowledge. It's analysis of knowledge. But when does knowledge become intelligence and creativity? So there is a huge spectrum here. And maybe somebody who has the knowledge can give you an answer, but that doesn't mean they are intelligent about it. And I think that's where we tend to really amplify this to and glorify this to much more than what it really is. And so in that aspect, I would say, I don't think it's ever going to get to that point, at least with not what we know so far.
How many R's are in strawberry? Is that your example of not actually being intelligent? Yeah, do you know what I'm referring to, the R's in strawberry? How most of the models just didn't know how many
Yeah,
R's
if
were
you
in
asked
strawberry.
AI how many R's there were in strawberry, it would often miss an R or something else because that wasn't the intent of the tool. It wasn't programmed to do that. It had never been asked that before, so it couldn't answer that intelligently.
Maybe two short comments, like one to the empathy. I don't know if some of you saw, I think it's HBR, Harvard Business Review, that recently republished like what they are seeing as the most common use cases people use Gen AI for compared to last year. And what shot to the top is stuff like as a companion for partnership. And I find it really scary as a human, right? So, but in the end, in those use cases, it's not about does it have real empathy, can it simulate the empathy to an extent that people feel like humans feel like it's useful to them, right? And if that's then positive or negative, it's another question. And regarding the speed, I hope it's not going to continue at this speed. Like as somebody like full-time in this field, it's exhausting. And also, I mean, move fast and break things, right? Let's maybe break some fewer things, right? It's too fast, right? You said you're working on an MCP, right? Everybody's cloning MCP servers left and right from the internet, running them on their developer machines that have access to your whole software delivery supply chain.
What
right
could possibly
now,
go
right?
wrong?
And this happened in what, like 2 months or something? It's exploded, right? Maybe let's like take a little bit of speed out. So that's what I would wish. So I hope it doesn't continue like this forever.
Yeah, and with MCP, people are all of a sudden surprised. Oh, I ran this untrusted code from the internet, and there's a security issue. Like, woo! Like, yeah, let's take a moment to think. Untrusted code is unsafe.
So at the college situation, we're addressing this idea. There's a common trope or perception that we should ban AI in the classroom because it's only a tool for plagiarism. And we reject that outright. And we said this is a writer's tool. And what if instead you could put your paper into the chatbot of your choice and asked it to summarize your key points? Did it summarize the points you were intending to write in that? One of the things you can do is the complexity of your writing. So many times college students try to use $20 words and confabulate and use so many words. We're having them put their papers in and say, can you rewrite this paper at an 8th grade reading level? And they're not able to submit the result of that, but it sparks that fire. If we present AI as a writer's tool that you can use to hone your craft and make your output better, we're simply asking them to submit a first draft that's very clearly their work, however we decide to determine that, but then we're encouraging them to use this tool to continue to hone it, to improve it and do all that. If we present this as a writer's tool, all of a sudden it's not scary at all. It's a fascinating tool, and it's going to allow us to, used correctly, improve the state of the art.
Hi, I'm Akash, and I'm 2024 pass out. I'm not that mature of a developer, and I recently got into the field of DevOps. So I know that AI can generate code for web, generate code for apps, but I want to listen like where AI is in picture of DevOps. I mean, I do not know if it's true for everyone, but I do most of my work through docs only. Like if I have to get an infra ready through AWS console. I mean, AI can generate the scripts and all, but it's not, we do not get hit in trials like software developers. So I want to like listen to you. What do you guys think about this? And where should I, like my future learning should be focused where? I want to listen that.
I'll take this one first. So I think there's a few sides to this. I think right now the code assistants can help you write your infrastructure as code better. The assistants that are being built into many of the operational tools can help you diagnose problems and get to root cause, understand potential issues. So I think that's all like where we're at today. And so I think there is a lot of impact to the AI tools that exist today for IAC, for operational things. Where I think this is going is that we'll have agents that we'll be able to assign work to, and that work will be to do all sorts of operational things. And the agents will in the future be able to take care of a lot of the tasks that we would normally have to do as a DevOps engineer. But again, I don't think that replaces you as a DevOps engineer. It opens you up to be able to focus on other things, tackle harder problems, deal with the more complex things that the agents aren't able to do. So, so that's how I see where we're at with that today, but maybe others see it otherwise.
Yeah, I think two things that I find are create more challenges in the ops area than in other software delivery areas with GenAI specifically is one that in ops specifically and continuous delivery and deployment, repeatability is key, right? We want things to be repeatable so that we can do them over and over again. We have confidence in our deployment and our releases and so on. And generative AI is non-deterministic, so we don't have that repeatability. So we have to be really careful for which things we actually use it, right? And the other challenge I see with generating infrastructure code with an AI assistant, we talked a little bit already about how you have to be in charge and really see what it does, and maybe, you know, it critiques it better than it generates it. And so always when we use a coding assistant, we have to think about our feedback loop, right? How can I most quickly find out if what this thing generated for me is actually working? And the feedback loop in infrastructure code is usually a lot longer than in any other code. So that's like another challenge there, I think. I've mostly seen it so far also with like, yeah, in cloud consoles, you know, help you like create queries faster, right? Like I saw one in a Google demo, I think, in one of their security platforms where it was like, you just write in natural language, there's this new vulnerability, tell me which of my services are affected by this. And then in the background, it turns it into queries in your systems and, you know, stuff like that. Just help you navigate the information faster so that you can debug better. So that's one thing that I find quite promising, like debugging help, like navigating all of this information, your past Slack incident channels, all of the observability information, which sometimes you have to be a real wizard to go through all of those and put them together. So like in many other areas, GenAI helps you get a more holistic view and find hopefully the right information just in time when you need it. And when you're in ops, you're often under time pressure when you need to fix something, right? So.
So, hello, my name is MS Nimish, and the question that I would like to ask is, should developers still go deep into algorithm, data structures, and system design, or will AI abstract that away? That is one question, first part. And second part is, how should the developers balance between the AI tools versus building their own problem-solving skills? Now, earlier, data structures and algorithms, we used that and solved problems, but now it seems like the AI tools that are there, those are the things that will be solving those problems. So how can we make a balance between, and should we go deep into algorithms and data structures? That is basically my question. Yeah, thank you.
So I'm going to draw two different timelines, and I touched this in my keynote, and I think it's, and again, I think it's important to acknowledge that there's a huge unknown in front of us. So, but I like to draw this as two different time zones. And the time zones here is, if we are in the mode where AI generates code that a human has to look at, versus a time when AI trashes the code it generates and regenerates it. And there's a clear distinction between these two phases. In the phase we are in right now, I would say the answer is yes, because whatever it creates, you need to have knowledge of. We are not in a situation to abstract that out yet. But when a time, if and when a time comes, when we look at source code as if it's a machine code, then we don't have to be concerned about it. And I think that's, to me at least, that's a nice theory, but I don't have any evidence that we are there anytime soon.
You know, 20 years ago, we used to have this job title called web developer. Can I try the joke again? No, you're not a web developer, are you? Yeah? Yeah, yes? Oh, of course you are! Of course you are! Michael, I'm doing warm reads on the room right now. Web frameworks hold a very important place in our life as web developers. There's no question about that. Because that's code that we don't have to write. So it allows us to speed forward and focus on the quality of our code. If we're using frameworks, does that mean we abdicate our responsibility for testing? Or does that mean that the frameworks, the time that the frameworks give us back, we can use to improve the quality or the performance or those kinds of things? In no way can we allow AI to abdicate our core responsibilities as DBAs, as web developers? The flip side of this is I can't tell you how many React developers I talk to, and they say if there's only some way that I could store something locally in the browser, and I say it's called local storage, and they're like, yeah, but I mean, no, like in React, if there was only some way I could store something locally, it's called local storage. It exists already, right? If you don't understand one layer of abstraction below you are working, there's no way you're advancing the state of the art. So if you are using AI as your entry point, it is fundamentally your responsibility to be intelligent enough, to be experienced enough, to evaluate the output of your code. Your infrastructure building code, your object relational management code, your HTML that frameworks generate on your behalf. We can't tell this story enough. This is not an abdication of your responsibility. It heightens the need for experts in the field, and I hope that you will step up to that challenge. AI is a tool, and it's a fantastic tool, but it's not a shortcut. It's not a hack. We still have a need for craftsmanship. We still have a need for experts in the field. If it can get you faster to being an expert, then AI has done its job. If it gets you faster to market, if it gets you faster to these things, so you can focus on accessibility, you can focus on performance, you can focus on these kinds of things, then the tool has done its job. But we know that tools can be misused. And I do get concerned that this tool has a much, much higher likelihood of being misused than being used in a responsible way.
And I hear this analogy a lot that people say, oh, this is the next abstraction level, right? Like we always chase abstraction levels so we have less to do and are more effective, right? So machine code, languages, frameworks, domain-specific languages, no-code, low-code, right? And then people say natural language, that's the next abstraction level. But it's not really. Like it is a form of abstraction, but it's very different than the others because it's, I don't know, leaky is not the right word. It's like full of holes somehow. But it's more like, for me, it's more lateral. It's on the side of all of those abstraction levels because we can work with it on all of them. So we can generate Spring code with it. We can work on Java code with it. We can even do assembly code with it. We can also create no-code, low-code applications with it, which are the most impressive demos actually because the abstraction of the target there is the highest. But yeah, like as Venkat said, as long as the natural language is not the runtime language, it is a different thing, right? And that's why we always talk about we still have to be in control. And yes, it is similar to we have to know the next level of abstraction, but in a different way because we're still touching that level as well. And so that's why I think it's a bit of a fallacy to say, oh yeah, it's just the next abstraction level because it's not really.
My mind went to a completely different place. So, by the way, that was awesome. Not meaning towards you, but towards the question. If I had a concern, actually, it is we live in this interesting world now that's just completely full of disinformation and has, at least in the U.S., a bent against scientific authority and things of that nature. That we, for some reason, think that we're capable of being the doctor. We're capable of being the engineer. We're capable of, and go through the list. If I have a concern, it's really geared around the deep fakes and the likelihood that that's going to cause real serious harm to us. And that likely is going to be generated by AI. And so it really takes us down a different path of AI than it is like job loss or what we do as an engineer. We're going it down a path where it is insanely difficult to truly know the truth, the capital T truth of things. And if I have a worry, as the optimist that I am, that is the worry that I'm most concerned with. And you've heard it throughout some of our conversations here. What if it generates something that isn't accurate? You don't have the skill to know that it's accurate, then you're at the mercy, or you're a victim of the situation where you accept it as the truth when it's not. And we could go even further than that, of course. So if there's something to truly be concerned with, I'd be less concerned with the topic at hand and more concerned with how are we going to respond as a society to with the inability to understand what is real and what has been faked.
Briefly, just as Ken was there discussing the disinformation that's rampant in the world, the AI on my wrist just informed me that I closed my standing ring. I've been sitting on stage for an hour, and the AI just told me, congratulations, you've stood enough for the day. So it happened just as you were mentioning it.
I want to say, by the way, for the freshers in the room, and there was somebody asking a question from that group before, don't freak out when all the senior developers now tell you, oh, you have to be careful, you're going to do the wrong thing, the AI is going to give you the wrong thing. I did so many things wrong. Like in my first internship, I accidentally deleted the whole user database. And this was like, I was never so red in my face in my life, right? And this was before there were different environments, right? This was the production database, right?
It's okay as long as you call it as refactoring.
Yeah. So, and of course that was really bad, right? So don't do that. But I'm just saying, don't get freaked out, right? Think about, we all make mistakes all the time. So we think about our safety net, our continuous integration, delivery. There are so many tools out there that already help us make our code better. Everything I learned from making mistakes, and see it as a blessing that AI writes bad code for you now because you will get a lot of experience debugging. And that's how I learned a lot of stuff, right? So, ask them, okay, if you think that I'm going to do things wrong with AI, what safety net did you provide me? Like, what pipelines do you have? Like, what do you teach me, right? Don't let them freak you out, and you have to, don't be afraid to push. You have to push, and run into these things, and, that's how you learn. Yeah.
I think we're almost out of time. So any closing words from anyone on the panel? James?
Those just were my closing words, I think.
Thank
so.
you. Please.
I think the one thing that hasn't been said that I've heard said, it's not my quote, is that you don't have to worry about AI taking your job, but you may have to worry about a developer who knows how to use AI tools well taking your job. And I think that's a good way to look at it, is like, we should all be learning how to use these tools effectively to help us be more productive, help us get our jobs done better. And those are the developers that are doing that are the ones that you may actually lose your job to.
I think that's an important message to take home. And I would say, if you think that AI is not going to affect us, that's being ignorant. But if you think that AI is going to take everything away, that is just unfounded fear. It's something in between, and it's for us to really become skillful in a way to use this tool. And if we keep reminding ourselves that it's a tool, I think we have a really good way to skill ourselves up to be able to meet those benefits we get from the tools. This has been great. Thank you so much for the panel. Thank you so much for the audience for asking questions as well. So, and I want to say thank you so much for being here to make this a great event. It wouldn't have happened without you. And those two people over there are the ones that make this happen. So make sure to tell them what a great job they're doing, Dilip and Indu, for running such an amazing event. And hope to see you all next year. And this doesn't have to be an end. I kindly request you to be involved in the community. So find your user groups, whichever city you come from. Don't stay home. Go to these user groups. Interact with fellow developers. Find out what they're doing. To me, one of the best advantages we have as a community is to network. And so find those people. And the next time you see somebody, you have seen a friend, you have seen a colleague in the industry. And I get emails from people saying, hey, I want to know how to find a job. I first say, find the people who can find the job for you. So continue to network. You've come here, but I'm sure you're leaving with a few friends. Continue that friendship and hope to see you next year. Thank you.
Thank you.